Welcome to today's webinar presented by Software Technology Group. Our commitment at STG is to facilitate the transformation of businesses and technology organizations through innovation and optimization. We are excited to have you as part of our audience. Our goal for this webinar is to provide valuable insights and ignite ideas that can benefit your organization. Thank you once again for joining us.
Well, welcome. My name is Mel Tingey. I am the Chief Technology and Strategy Officer for Software Technology Group. We are a consulting company located in Salt Lake City, Utah, serving clients all throughout the United States. Today's webinar is on the topic of cloud architecture, and specifically, what does it mean to have a well-architected cloud solution? Today, we have our cloud architect, Nate Benson, with us, who will be actually doing most of the conversation today. I've got a few things that I'll add and kind of move us through different sections, but we're really grateful to have Nate as part of our organization. Nate has brought a lot of excellence to this particular practice that we have at STG. And with Nate, we have a partnership with Amazon Web Services where we actually have a pretty deep access with AWS on architecting things really well for specifically for AWS. I'm not sure if we're going to get into it today, Nate, but with the partnership that we have with AWS, we actually have access to funding that we can partner with Amazon that can actually be passed through to our clients for various types of projects. So if you've got a lift and shift or something that you're beginning to want to architect and build in the cloud, please reach out to us because we can often put that project together with Amazon and some funding will come through to help offset some of the costs that you would incur. So Nate, with that, the term well-architected review, or WAR, has become kind of an industry standard for how we look at what constitutes a well-architected solution for the cloud. I will just say on a personal note, I've seen situations where individuals actually built or migrated a monolith from an on-prem situation into the cloud and did not do the proper cloud architecting and ended up paying really high compute costs that they did not need to spend. One situation over a 10-year period, a client, incurred literally millions of dollars in unnecessary spend that had they architected it properly up front, they would have saved themselves a lot of unnecessary cost during that time frame. So with that, why don't we just jump in, Nate, and talk through, what is a WAR, what constitutes that, what do we do when we work with a client to go through that? So let's jump right in.
Yeah, as you mentioned, all the major platforms have learned how to deploy with best practices on their cloud platforms, and that's become known as a well-architected framework. And we find this in AWS, we find it in Azure, we find it in Google. But what it really means is that they've identified sets of best practices. They're constantly upgrading them. They have defined what they call pillars. Each of the three cloud platforms call them pillars. These are pillars that are like operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and Amazon also has one, that for people who are required to measure their sustainability. And each of these pillars have design principles that are designed around best practices. So the concept of the well-architected framework is putting into play these design principles and making sure that you do periodic analysis or review of your environment to make sure that you're evolving with the technology, right? We probably did something like this on premises, but this is actually, I think, a lot easier because it's a platform. You've got literally thousands of engineers working on this. So anyway, the idea behind the well architected is taking these principles, design principles, and then for your organization balancing them out to get the appropriate intent of your organization. Always trying to get to best practices. And so one of the ways that you do that is go through periodic reviews or well-architected reviews, and we call these WARs for short.
That's great. So let's move a little deeper in the conversation and kind of get into kind of the detail, the kinds of questions that are asked, the kinds of detail that you're doing, and then also the frequency. I mean, is this something that an organization should be thinking about once a quarter, twice a year, once a year? What's the kind of the benchmark that an organization should be thinking about?
Yeah, Amazon for one, and AWS and Azure. They suggest a periodic review of 6 to 12 months, every 6 to 12 months for a workload. And so there are some specific terms that we use and some ideas around a well-architected review to help people understand what they're getting into and why they do it, and how to sort of not try to eat the elephant, because a cloud cloud infrastructure can be quite large, and you've got to break it down to be able to make meaningful, making a meaningful analysis with your review. One of the first things we stress is that a well-architected review is not an audit. I think a lot of technical people are afraid that if they do a well-architected review or they have someone come in and do a well-architected review, it's going to end up on the CTO's desk or something like that, and it's going to be used as a stick. Really what it is, it's a continuous improvement process. So you balance whether you think someone's going to beat you with it, with like a stick, or whether someone's going to say, hey, my people have a continuous improvement process, and they're continually improving our environment and getting us closer to best practices. Some of the common terms we use for war, when we're talking about a war, is a workload, right? What's a workload? So you've got this entire environment, but if you think about it, your environment's broken down into workloads, and a workload is something, it's an identified set of components that deliver some business value. So you can define them the way you want. It might be just an API out there grabbing something. It might be several pieces of code put together that do that. And the idea behind defining them as a workload is you really should do an assessment for war on a workload level. Otherwise, it's just too daunting to try to get through a review. Then when we do a review on a workload, we create milestones. So in the next period, you come back, you start where you left off, and you continually move that workload forward and improve it, right? One of the things that we do after each review is we get our highest priority things that we need to change. We get an artifact that comes out of the process, and we can see, our high, mediums, and lows, and what we most need to work on, what we most need to prioritize. And then for those people out there who have a lot of changes to their applications or unique things to their applications, there's something called focused use cases or lenses, where we can actually create a framework that is very specific to your technology domain or very specific to your industry. So it's something that we can work on if you feel like your technology is very unique or in a domain that's uncommon. And again, as I mentioned, what we're trying to see are what are the high, mediums, and lows, and we have a concept of HRIs, high risk issues. We definitely want to capture those in each period, and we definitely want to make sure that we're prioritizing those to the top to fix. They're the ones that may have the most significant negative impact for the organization. So, ultimately, we use the WAR process to take a cloud workload and compare it to the design principles. The process usually takes about 4 hours per workload. And again, the idea is to get artifacts that include, your high, medium, and low risk report, plus a get well plan that your cloud team can use to, prioritize and complete your most critical tasks. And, as to your question of some of the things that might be asked, we ask things around cost optimization. Do you still do a lot of undifferentiated heavy lifting? Nothing hurt my feelings more to find out that my CTO, my CFO didn't care that I could build any kind of cable on the known planet, that I had a breakout box. That wasn't what he was into. He wanted, business value for what they needed to get done. So, it kind of does deflate your steely-eyed missile man view of yourself as an engineer, but that's undifferentiated heavy lifting. They want you working on the thing that gets the product out and gets things working. Do you automate your workloads? You automate your recovery? Do you test your recoveries? Do you keep yourself current on the new technologies that are available? Those are all examples of design principles that are gone through in a questionnaire. And the questionnaire, like I said, it can take about 4 hours to complete.
And is that questionnaire, is that something that you typically send to a client and have them fill out, or do you do that in more of an interactive model?
We do it in an interactive model. We like to sit with the team. We use the cloud's assessment tool so that it stays on their account, and we like to sit with the cloud technology team. If a CTO wants to join or someone else, that's fine. But it's really about the cloud technology team, maybe some of the security personnel. We sit down. People can come and go as they need to. It's not super formal, and we just go through that and gather that information. One of the values of having STG there is we go through these enough to have help them kind of walk through what the question is actually asking. So.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. One of the things that that I was impressed with, as you and I were talking back a few weeks ago, was how in the world of compute, if you think about like the evolution of hardware, the increase in processor speeds, the increase in enhancement in different memory things that have occurred over time. When you move to the cloud, the advances are still happening. Mm-hmm. And if you're not regularly looking at and evaluating the way that you can tweak your configuration, tweak some of your architecture to take advantage of that, you actually may be in a great spot now and in a not so good spot a year from now. Where a year from now, you may be like, hey, we actually need to go back in and make a couple modifications to this framework, change this configuration, and all of a sudden our overall compute, costs have gone down again.
Right.
And so, one of the advantages of having Nate be kind of a regular part of your review process is that it allows your cloud team to stay very focused on all the operational activities that need to happen, working with their development team, making sure that they're responding really, really well to the general flow of engineering activities that are going to occur within your organization, and then let Nate be the one who comes in every 6 months and conducts a war, brings some of the new thinking, brings some of the new ideation, and then again builds out this get well plan to move things forward. Again, the way we position ourselves, we do not ever want to be viewed as an audit organization. No. I appreciate even the humor that you shared that a minute ago, but truly, like we've done this enough to where we can kind of begin to tell if what we're doing is going to get weaponized. And if we sense that, we will actually work with the various leadership folks within your organization to really kind of tamp down that dust, mm-hmm. so that they understand that, look, every situation, every system has things that need to be improved.
Right.
And the culture we want to always bring is one of continual improvement.
Right.
That we're there to help. We're there to be somebody that's trusted, that can get in and help. We don't ever want to be seen as somebody that's essentially bringing frustration or pain into the cloud team. We know too well that if that happens, the ability to think and create kind of goes away. So
yeah, that's exactly right. We every workload is going to be at the point that it's at, and for whatever reason, it might be because of technical debt, it might be because of the great and common thing that we hear of. We were told by October 15th we had to be in the cloud.
Yeah.
And by golly, they made it to the cloud. But, there's always that periodic review. It's something that we were taught to do as engineers, before the cloud. but this is the way we do it as efficiently as possible for the cloud. And ultimately, we do it periodically because the goal of that is to leverage that war process to design the cloud workloads, improve the workloads to achieve the organization's desired business and technical outcomes while optimizing it for cost. Mm-hmm. So it's what your C-level people would want to hear that you're doing, but we don't want it to be viewed as, or we don't want it to become, used in a negative way. It's a positive thing to be able to create that continuous improvement culture that all organizations want. So.
Yeah. One of the things that I think, just looking at some of your notes here, Nate, that I think would be helpful for our audience to hear is to talk through, as part of the war, what you do to look for, resilience kinds of activities, the auto scaling, the ability for the system to essentially self-heal. Like,
Right.
what are some things that would come out of a war in those topics?
So there's quite a few questions to help kind of narrow down where a workload's at. And, for operational performance, we want to know, do you perform your operations with code? I know that can sound daunting, but that takes out human error.
When infrastructure is code.
Yeah, when we do it with code, it's something we can completely duplicate again and again and again. A lot of people say, well, we don't do enough to justify the time spent in that automation. That there is something to that, but ask yourself the other question: is do humans introduce errors when we're doing that? Another thing might be, how often do we refine our operations procedures? How often do we sit down and teach our people to make frequent small changes? Reliability, as you mentioned, do we perform our recoveries automatically? Do we test those recoveries? Do we scale horizontally, where we use target groups to scale up and down. I know a lot of people are using software products that don't necessarily allow that. But what we found over time is that sometimes you gotta, we'll call it legacy for lack of a better term, monolithic legacy or something, but you've got to add something to it. Maybe you need to add reporting to it. Maybe you need to add something else to it. Those are all opportunities to use, cloud native tools to support that application, without actually having to dig in and completely rewrite it. Cost optimization, like I mentioned before, are you spending money on undifferentiated lifting? Do you analyze and attribute the expenses, with tags? Maybe you don't need to attribute whose expenses, like who's spending what on what resources, but maybe your organization is not structured that way. It's all on comes off one invoice, but maybe you need some shame back. May not be charged back, but it may be shame back, where you're trying to say, hey, you guys, you need to keep your expenses under control. Do you implement a cloud financial management solution? They're available on the main three platforms, Amazon, AWS especially. So those are examples. I guess we could go through specific questions in the Q&A if people have them. We can talk to them specifically.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get to open Q&A here in just a bit, but before we get there, kind of looking at your outline here, this last section, why does STG, why did we add this to our service offering? How do we best plug in with organizations? What are some of your thoughts there, Nate?
Sure. Again, like we mentioned, the whole idea behind these is to continuously measure your workloads. This is why you need to do this periodically. This is why an organization needs to do this. But as you mentioned, you might have technical debt. You may have things where it's just too much effort to send people off or for hours and hours to try to solve these things. So that's one of the reasons why we do it. But we need to get to the point where we can continuously measure our workloads. We can catch and quickly remediate the worst problems. We can better manage risk. We can understand what new services are out there. We can maintain and a better and accurate picture of the cloud. So when someone comes and asks me, hey, tell me about the cloud infrastructure, I'm not like, well, Bob has this and Sally has that. And we need to deploy an ever more modern architecture that reduces that technical debt that's keeping you from doing this in the first place. I like Werner Vogel's quote that says 21st century architectures are controllable, resilient, adaptive, and data driven. So this is kind of why we do this as an organization. We want to be part of understanding your technology stack, understand where you're going. A lot of people would say, well, you do it as a pre-sales event. You don't charge for wars. Well, why would you do that? Because we want to be your cloud partner. And we more than want to be your cloud partner, we want to be part of your digital transformation, which is an ongoing effort in all organizations. And cloud has been a big part of some organizations' digital transformation. It's been a big part of many organizations' digital transformation. And so it's a great way for us to be able to work with your organization, work with your technology team, understand your pain points, and become acquainted with your organization for cloud work primarily, or for other digital transformation work. We don't have a better way really, except through a war or through an architectural discussion, a way to find out these things, and so that's what we need to do to partner with your organization.
Well, I think that's really well said, Nate. One thing I've learned over the years is that the relationships we have with, top thinkers, the way we build, vendor relationships, client relationships, I'm getting older in my career, and I am super grateful for the even the length of time that I know certain people, because I know I can trust and work with them in ways that their advice, their view, their best interest is in my best interest. Like they're there to help. And one of the things that I love about you personally and about the way that we offer our cloud services at STG is that we take the long game.
Yes, absolutely.
We look at this through a much larger window of time. Some organizations will get in and they really want to see results very, very quickly. And we can definitely help make immediate changes and so forth. But as your product evolves and is used over time, having a relationship where there's a regular cadence of continuous improvement, obviously the war structure is something that would be at the foundation of that every 6-month review. But even the ability for your cloud engineers to be able to tap in and call you at any time.
Right.
That's the type of relationship we have with many of our clients.
That's right.
And that's the very best type of relationship because they know they can count on us to give advice that is in their best interest. As an independent firm, we love that independence. We obviously work with both AWS and Azure. And we will advise in ways that are truly independent and give you the best advice possible.
Right. Yeah. We definitely partner with Azure and AWS and Google Cloud Platform, but we're there in for the long haul with our customers, and there's nothing more important than the trust.
Yep. That
we're there to make them successful and not to represent someone over their interests. And, this is the way we can do that. This is the way we can come to know and regularly become reacquainted through wars. And, one of the things we do, because organizations have multiple workloads, and after a while, after you're doing periodic reviews on workloads, one of the things we like to do, if it's valuable to the customers, we like to help the customer set up a way to manage those reviews, a way to manage the reports and the reviews. We do that as well as a pre-sales item, so that you can obtain a way to write reports and see dashboards of the reviews that are going on and the top issues that are coming out of your wars. So that, not every customer is going to want us to build something in their infrastructure, but that's something that we do and have done for customers. So again, if at the end of a war there are things that need to be remediated, things that need to be taken care of, and an organization doesn't feel like it has the hands to do it, we're there to do that as well. But the war is the way that we want to get in and understand the environment and make that initial trust relationship, and and have that periodic review on workloads that allows us to evolve and understand with the workloads. So
very good. Well, Nate, what else? What else do you have that you want to share today? Anything kind of in conclusion? What else would you say?
Yeah, I would probably say that I know your teams can do wars, and I know that people have had different experiences if they've had wars in the past. We try to really tailor the war to what the organization needs. We don't want to bore someone going through 5 pillars and 75 questions. If they have an immediate pain, or they have something they need to solve now, we can have an engineering discussion, a whiteboard discussion, architecture discussion. Our point there is not to check the box and say we did a war, although we find doing an assessment the way that the cloud platform has set up is ultimately useful to the organization. So we look forward to the opportunity to come out and talk to your technology teams. We look forward to the opportunity to talk to your C-suite people and understand your digital transformation. As an organization, this is what we do, and we're good at it. And we feel like it's a privilege to have that access and that opportunity to talk and make those relationships. So
that's great. Well, Nate, thank you. This has been very beneficial, and we'll switch over live and take some Q&A.
Okay.
Thanks.
We hope you found value in today's webinar. If you wish to delve deeper into how STG can contribute to the innovation and optimization of your organization, please visit our website at stgconsulting.com for more information. Thank you for being with us today. We wish you a fantastic day ahead.